Hello, this is Perfect Death here, bringing another video for Ragnarok Online Mobile. This time I'm going to be covering the Royal Guard skill Earth Drive. So Earth Drive is one of the early skills that you can learn as a Royal Guard. I kind of covered in a previous video slightly, but this time I'm going to go more in depth on the skill. It is considered a shield skill, and it does a area of effect, and the main way that it does damage is based on vitality and defense. It also will be forced to earth element, and it has a debuff effect by reducing movement speed and attack speed. So with this skill, it opens up some similar AoE abilities to Grand Cross. It kind of functions a lot similar in how it would work, where it only affects the area around you. So you can see that I almost didn't quite have enough range to hit one of them, and I was unable to hit the other one. So it's a bit of a tricky skill to set up for auto farming if I were to put the skill in as the only one and then just go, hey, auto farm Harpies, right? You see I'm trying to target this one, but my character is not going to move, right? And I'm not even using stay alert. So I was looking at how it could be used to better farm things, especially Harpies. So we can see I'm doing about 10,000 damage as is. That's largely because I am not equipped with my best defensive armor. So I have about 700 defense right now. And if I were to equip some gear that gives more defense, let's see, what else? There we go. So right there I've got significantly more defense. I'm now went from 700 to 11.7. So the damage jump from this is going to be enough. I basically gained 77,000 damage just for a 400 defense upgrade. Another skill that can actually boost my damage here. You see, I just did 22,000 or 222,000 damage. That's because the shield boomerang skill, when you break through, it will give you up to 300 defense. So if I have 1100 there, I use this skill and I now have 1400, so that will apply. It doesn't last very long, so it'd be a little tricky to get that to function. So it might be useful to combine the two. That's especially true if you are in, let's say, PvP. This skill is quite useful for debuffing people, but in this video, to figure out how to best farm something like Harpies, you want to try to get into the middle area of them. See, I wasn't quite there. If I was just a little further up, I would have been able to hit this one. So it's very tricky to get this skill to work in a auto farming situation because the Harpies are moving around. They do spawn fairly close together, but not in the same spot. So if I were to just stay here, when another wave respawns, they will spawn in a fairly close area, but it's very unlikely that they'll spawn in the same spot. So right now they're completely out of range and I can't hit them. And that makes it really tricky to set up farming builds for this. So one option is that you could just grab auto attack and then do that. So now the character will run up to one at least. But again, I'm not really getting the best AoEs off. I'm hitting one at a time. So to farm Harpies better, I could try to get my shield chain up, but my shield chain doesn't deal enough damage to Harpies to one-shot them. And it almost does enough damage to one-shot them. Here, if I were to use an earth element converter, then I'd be able to no problem, or at least with shield boomerang. My shield chain's not quite strong enough because I did switch out attack gear for defense gear. So it's possible for me to just swap between doing shield boomerang and then earth drive, but it's currently a bit tricky to set up this skill for farming harpies that are not quite tightly packed together. The skill is still quite useful, but it's also just limited in that regard. If you get an area like the forced earth element can make it really tricky to find what kind of enemies you want to farm, because if you're farming earth elements or fire elements, then you're going to be dealing less damage to them. You can't take advantage of elemental bonuses if you're just stuck to earth element with this skill. As such, harpies, which are wind element, are much more appealing in that regard, but if you have to manually move your character around just so that you get at least 2 harpies per shot, maybe 3 or 4, it does seem like if you wanted to be the most effective with this, then having shield chain able to one-shot would also work. I can get shield chain to work, but I'd have to get more different buffs set up to combo them all. And even then, if you're killing everything one by one with shield chain and shield boomerang, then they're not spawning in big dense waves, so it makes it a little tricky to get this working easily. If you don't mind running around manually trying to find where the tightest spots are, then sure, because right there you're able to score quite a lot of kills. And sometimes, like right here, I only got 3 because they moved away just in time. If the skill cooldown, because it has a very long cooldown on this skill, right now it's comparable to shield boomerang, which is right here. Shield boomerang has a skill cooldown of 4 seconds and a cast delay of 1 second, while earth drive has a cast delay, or cast cooldown it says, but that cast cooldown is the same as the skill cooldown. They just typed it that way, I guess. So it has a 1 second longer cast delay. However, you can get runes with this skill that will reduce the cooldown by half a second each. So then you just have the cast delay, which is also fairly big because it's a 2-second one. So it's possible to juggle skills pretty well with this, especially because shield boomerang does buff the damage on earth drive if you need that extra damage. I'll quickly show where the earth drive runes are. So from the center down to the right, we can find that there's some earth drive runes down here. They cost about 20 each. You often have to go through either a strength rune or a command of charge rune. There's a second one down here. There's one down here. And I think it's just the 3. Oh, there's a 4th one right over here. 5th one. I'll just bring up a rune calculator to show that there's about 5 of them in here. And so if you get all 5, then that's a 2.5 second reduction in a 5 second skill cooldown. So you have a 2 second cast delay and potentially just a 2.5 second skill delay. So you can get it pretty quick, considering that you can't reduce the shield boomerang from its 4-second skill cooldown. If you get all 5 runes for Earth Drive, you can spam it pretty quickly. And so in that sense, it might be much more viable if you can spam it to, you know, move around and clear out. I don't think you would use up a lot of combat time if you farm Harpies this way, just because you're not really engaged in fights for very long. That would be something to test out, because you would be, if you really wanted to be just efficient per, you know, use of the skill, then that would be the case. But, you know, spending 360 combat time moving around trying to, you know, compete with other people and secure a lot of Harpies is not as convenient as just going AFK and just setting yourself to do shield chain, shield boomerang. So I think that'll be it for this video. Nothing else really comes to mind. In this, I'm using, you know, Mandragora flower cards to do damage to the Harpies, so that's a 40% damage boost there. These pauldrons have pretty good defense, which is why I equip them. Secret Mission also has a fair bit of defense, and when you upgrade it, it gets even more defense. So, and the Goybean helmet gives you vitality and defense, so it's pretty good for boosting damage there. You might not want to get just get a mask that has defense, and like, I don't need this mask. This one's good because it gives me defense and vitality. And so in general, the combination of defense and vitality makes this a pretty strong skill, and it plays in pretty well to this passive skill, which gives you another 100 defense. And then if you're having a lot of vitality, then Battle Chant is going to give you a lot of extra healing from that. So it's a pretty good synergetic skill with a lot of the tanking skills that come with the Royal Guard. And it does synergize well with Shield Boomerang, in that you don't need to have a lot of attack gear like you do with Shield Chain, where it's very heavily weighted on your attack. A little bit of vitality can help boost this, but with Earth Drive, you're mostly getting damage out of vitality and defense. So you can see that even if you just use your Shield Boomerang to get that extra 300, I was boosting my damage quite a lot. I'll just show it again here. So it's a 222,000 damage when I have the Shield Boomerang buff, and then that right there. So it's an extra like 5,000 or 50,000 damage, which is a lot of extra damage. So definitely worth considering to do that in PvP, though for PvE, for just farming, you probably won't really rely too heavily on this unless you manual or find a really nice spot where there's just dense clumps of Harpies, and then you can more reliably get multiple Harpies in your AoE. So that'll be it for this video. Take care.